Hey guys, it's Sublime Tales, bringing you the best of Reddit stories. Hit that like and subscribe button for more stories. Ida for telling my sister she shouldn't have had kids if she couldn't afford them? I was enjoying a rare quiet Saturday morning when my phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was my sister, Emily, calling for the third time that week. I sighed, already knowing where this conversation was going. Emily, 34 years old, was a single mother of 3 kids, struggling to make ends meet. I loved my nieces and nephew, but Emily's constant financial crises were starting to wear me down. "Hey, Alex, I really need your help," she started, her voice shaky. "What's going on, Em?" I asked, trying to keep the frustration out of my voice. "It's rent this time. I'm short, and if I don't pay by Monday, they'll start the eviction process. I swear, I've tried everything. But with the car breaking down last month and the daycare costs, I just..." "Em, this is the third time in 6 months," I interrupted, unable to hold back. "I'm not exactly swimming in money either, you know? I wouldn't ask if I had any other options," she pleaded. "I'm doing the best I can." I could hear the exhaustion in her voice, but I was exhausted too. Not just from work, but from always being the one to pick up the pieces. Emily had never been great with money, even before she had kids. But since her divorce 2 years ago, things had gone from bad to worse. Every time I helped, I told myself it would be the last time, but here we were again. "Have you thought about looking for another job? Or maybe downsizing to a cheaper place?" I suggested, though I knew these weren't new ideas to her. "I've been looking, Alex. But the job market isn't great, and the kids love their school. I don't want to uproot them." "That's understandable," I said, trying to stay patient. "But, Em, at some point, you've got to make a change. I can't keep bailing you out. It's not sustainable." Silence hung between us, heavy and uncomfortable. "So, are you going to help me or not?" she asked quietly, but there was an edge to her voice now. I took a deep breath. "How much do you need?" $800. "I'll pay you back as soon as I can." I hesitated, calculating the hit to my own finances. It would mean cutting back on my own plans for the next few months, but what choice did I have? Family is family, right? "Okay, I'll send it over," I finally said, my voice tight. "Thank you, Alex. Really, I mean it," she said, sounding relieved. But after I hung up, I couldn't shake the frustration that had been building for months, maybe even years. Was I really helping her, or was I just enabling her to keep making the same mistakes? A week later, I was at our parents' house for Sunday dinner. It was a tradition that had started when we were kids and had somehow stuck even as we all grew up and moved out. Emily was there with the kids, and for the first hour or so, everything was fine. The kids were playing, Mom was in the kitchen, and Dad was in his usual spot on the couch, watching football. But as dinner was served, the conversation inevitably turned to Emily's situation. My mom, ever the worrier, asked Emily how things were going, and that's when the tension in the room started to build. "I'm doing okay," Emily said, but there was no conviction in her voice. "Alex helped me out with rent again, so at least we're not on the street." Mom shot me a grateful look, but I couldn't return it. Instead, I just stared at my plate, pushing the food around with my fork. "That's good," Mom said softly. "But, honey, maybe it's time to look at other options. You can't keep depending on Alex like this." "I'm not depending on him," Emily snapped, her tone defensive. "It's just been a tough year." "It's been a tough few years, Em," I said before I could stop myself. The words were out, and I couldn't take them back. "You keep saying things will get better, but they don't. You're always struggling, and I'm always the one bailing you out. Maybe it's time to admit that something needs to change." The table went silent. Emily's face flushed with anger. "Are you serious right now?" she demanded. "You think I don't know how hard things are? You think I like asking for help? I think if you couldn't afford to raise 3 kids on your own, maybe you shouldn't have had them," I said, the words spilling out before I could think about how harsh they sounded. Mom gasped, and Dad finally looked up from the TV. Emily's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't the kind that meant she was about to cry. They were the kind that meant she was furious. "You have no idea what it's like," she hissed. "You're not a parent. You don't have anyone depending on you. It's easy for you to judge from your cushy little life." "Cushy?" I shot back, my own temper rising. "I work my ass off, Emily. I'm not living some luxury lifestyle. I'm just not making the same mistakes over and over again. Enough." Dad's voice boomed across the table. "Both of you, stop it. This isn't the time or place." But it was too late. The damage was done. Emily stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't believe you," she said, shaking her head at me. You're supposed to be my brother. Family is supposed to support each other, not tear each other down. Without another word, she grabbed her things, called the kids, and left. The door slammed behind her, and the silence that followed was suffocating. The next day, I couldn't concentrate at work. Emily's words echoed in my mind, and I felt a mix of anger and guilt. Had I been too harsh? Or was I finally saying what needed to be said? That evening, I got a call from our mom. I almost didn't pick up, knowing what the conversation would be about, but I couldn't avoid it forever. "Hi, Mom," I answered, bracing myself. "Alex, we need to talk," she said, her tone serious. "About what happened last night." I know, I sighed. I shouldn't have said what I did. "But, Mom, I'm just so frustrated. I feel like I'm always the one cleaning up her messes, and it's never enough." "I understand that you're frustrated, but what you said was really hurtful," Mom replied. "Emily is doing the best she can. She didn't choose to be in this situation." "I know she didn't choose it, but that doesn't mean she's not responsible for it," I argued. "She had 3 kids with a guy who bailed on her, and now she's struggling to take care of them. I've been helping as much as I can, but I can't keep doing this forever." Mom was quiet for a moment before she spoke again. "Alex, I think you need to apologize to your sister. She's going through a lot, and she needs her family right now." I rubbed my temples, feeling a headache coming on. "I'll think about it, Mom. But I still think she needs to hear the truth." We hung up, and I was left alone with my thoughts. The more I replayed the argument in my head, the more I doubted myself. Was I being an asshole for finally standing up to her, or was I justified in feeling like I'd had enough? A few days later, I decided to call Emily. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I knew we couldn't leave things the way they were. The phone rang several times before she finally picked up. "Hey," I said awkwardly. "Hey," she replied, her voice flat. "Look, about the other night." I started, but she cut me off. "You were right," she said, surprising me. "I shouldn't have had kids if I couldn't afford them. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm paying for them every day. But I didn't need you to throw it in my face." "I didn't mean to hurt you," I said, my guilt bubbling up. I don't know, I was frustrated. I feel like I'm always stepping in to help, and it never gets better." "I know you've been helping, and I appreciate it," she said. "But I'm not asking for your money because I'm sorry, Em," I finally said, my voice softer. "I shouldn't have said what I did. I was just angry, but I know you're trying. I don't know how to help you without feeling like I'm drowning too." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her take a deep breath. "I don't expect you to fix everything, Alex," she said. "But I could really use your support. Not just financially, but emotionally. I need someone to talk to, someone who can help me figure out a plan. I know I need to make changes, but it's hard to see a way out when I'm in the middle of it all." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "Okay. Let's start with that. We can sit down and look at your finances, see where you can cut back, and maybe even look into some local resources that could help. I'll be there for you, but we need to work together to make things better. I can't keep being the band-aid for a wound that's not healing." "Thank you, Alex," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "That means a lot. I know I've put you in a tough spot, and I'll do my best to change things." We talked a little longer, making tentative plans to meet up over the weekend to go through her budget and explore options. For the first time in a long time, it felt like we were on the same page, like we were actually moving toward a solution instead of just putting out fires. The following weekend, we sat down together at her kitchen table. The kids were at a friend's house, giving us some much-needed quiet time to focus. We spread out her bills, expenses, and income, and it quickly became clear that she was in deeper trouble than I'd realized. "You're spending more on groceries than I am, and I live alone," I pointed out gently. "Yeah, but feeding 3 kids isn't cheap," she replied, looking frustrated. "I get that, but there are ways to cut down costs," I said. "Meal planning, buying in bulk, shopping sales. It won't solve everything, but every little bit helps." We went through her budget line by line, finding areas where she could cut back, even if just a little. We also looked into local food banks, housing assistance programs, and other resources that could help lighten the load. "It's not going to be easy," I warned her. "But if we stick to this plan, you'll start to see some improvements. And I'm here to help, but we need to make sure this is the last time you're in this situation." "I understand," she said, her voice full of determination. "I don't want to keep relying on you. I want to be able to stand on my own 2 feet and take care of my kids without always worrying about where the next dollar is coming from." Over the next few months, Emily worked hard to stick to the plan. There were setbacks, Of course, unexpected expenses and moments of doubt, but she was making progress. Slowly but surely, she was getting back on her feet. And our relationship? It improved too. The tension that had built up over the years began to dissipate as we communicated more openly. I learned to offer support without feeling like I was sacrificing my own well-being, and Emily learned to ask for help without feeling like a burden. Looking back on everything, I realized how close I'd come to losing my sister over my own frustrations. I had been so focused on the money, on the tangible ways I was helping, that I forgot how much she needed emotional support too. It wasn't just about the dollars and cents, it was about being there for her in a way that didn't make her feel judged or alone. In the end, I'm glad I stood up to her, even if I did it in the wrong way at first. It forced us to have the tough conversations we'd been avoiding for too long. But I also learned that being honest doesn't mean being harsh, and that sometimes, the most valuable thing you can offer someone is understanding. So, was I the asshole? Maybe a little. But I think sometimes, you have to be willing to have those uncomfortable conversations, even if it risks hurting someone, as long as it's done with the right intentions. Emily and I are closer now because of it, and she's in a better place than she was before. And that, to me, is worth it. The weeks following our conversation were a whirlwind. Emily threw herself into making changes, and I tried to be as supportive as I could without compromising my own needs. I could see she was trying, but I also knew that breaking old habits wasn't easy. One Friday evening, about a month after our conversation, Emily called me. This time, there was no immediate crisis. Instead, she wanted to talk about something that had been on her mind for a while. "Alex, I've been thinking a lot about what you said," she began. "About how I ended up in this situation in the first place. It's hard to admit, but I've made a lot of bad decisions, especially when it comes to money. I've been spending way too much time looking for quick fixes instead of thinking about the long term." I was surprised by her candor. Emily had always been defensive about her choices, so this level of self-reflection was new. "That's a big step, Em," I said cautiously. "What's brought this on?" "I've been doing a lot of soul-searching," she admitted. "I've been so focused on just surviving that I haven't really thought about how I got here. It's been easy to blame the divorce, or my ex, or even bad luck, but the truth is, I've played a big part in my own struggles." Hearing her talk like this made me realize how much she had been struggling internally, even before things had gotten bad. "What do you think you could have done differently?" "Well, for starters, I shouldn't have had 3 kids with a man who wasn't reliable," she said with a hint of bitterness. "But more than that, I should have been smarter about my money. I should have saved more, planned better, and not relied so much on other people to bail me out. I've been waiting for someone to come along and fix things for me, but that's not how life works." I could hear the resolve in her voice, but I could also sense her sadness. It wasn't easy for her to admit these things, and I knew that she was feeling the weight of her past decisions. "Emily, you're not the only one who's made mistakes," I said, trying to comfort her. "We all make decisions that we regret later. The important thing is that you're recognizing it now, and you're taking steps to change." "Yeah," she sighed. "But it's hard not to feel like I've wasted so much time. I'm 34 years old, and I feel like I'm just now learning how to be an adult." "Everyone's timeline is different," I offered. "What matters is what you do moving forward. And you've already started making positive changes. That's something to be proud of." Emily was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the wheels turning in her head. "You know, I've been thinking about going back to school," she said suddenly. "School? For what?" I asked, genuinely curious. "I never finished my degree," she said. "I dropped out when I got pregnant with Mason. But I've been looking into some programs that would allow me to take classes online, on my own schedule. I think it could help me find a better job, something more stable and with better pay. It's going to take time, but I think it's the right move." This was a huge shift for Emily. Going back to school was no small feat, especially with 3 kids and a tight budget. But the fact that she was even considering it showed how serious she was about changing her life. "That sounds like a great idea, Em," I said, feeling a sense of pride. "If that's what you want to do, I'll support you however I can." "Thanks, Alex," she replied, her voice softer now. "It's scary, but I don't want to keep living like this. I want to set a better example for the kids, show them that it's never too late to make things right." As we continued talking, Emily opened up more about her fears and hopes for the future. She talked about the guilt she felt for putting her kids through so much instability and how she wanted to give them a better life. It was clear that she was determined to turn things around, not just for herself, but for her children as well. In the following weeks, Emily started taking steps toward enrolling in school. She researched programs, applied for financial aid, and even reached out to a few schools to discuss her options. It was a slow process, but she was making progress, and I could see her confidence growing. Meanwhile, I continued to help her with her finances. We revisited her budget regularly, adjusting it as needed, and I helped her set up a savings plan. Emily also began cutting back on unnecessary expenses, like takeout and impulse purchases, and started cooking more at home. It wasn't easy, but she was committed. One day, Emily called me with some exciting news. "I got into the program," she exclaimed. "They accepted my application, and I start next semester." "That's amazing, Em," I said, genuinely thrilled for her. "I'm so proud of you." "Thanks, Alex," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I know it's going to be hard, juggling school and the kids, but I'm ready for it. I just want to make things better for all of us." "One step at a time," I reminded her. "You've already come so far. Just keep moving forward, and everything else will fall into place." Over the next few months, Emily's life started to stabilize. She was still working her part-time job, but she was also taking classes and working toward her degree. The kids were doing well in school, and she had found a better daycare option that was both affordable and reliable. Our relationship also improved. We talked more often, not just about her problems, but about our lives in general. I realized that I had missed this connection with my sister, and I was glad we were rebuilding it. Just as things seemed to be settling down, life threw Emily another curveball. One evening, she called me, and I could tell something was wrong as soon as I heard her voice. "Alex, I don't know what to do," she said, sounding panicked. "I just got a notice from the landlord. They're raising the rent, and I can't afford it." I felt a surge of frustration. Just when she was starting to get back on her feet, something else had to go wrong. "How much are they raising it by?" I asked, trying to stay calm. "An extra $300 a month," she said, her voice trembling. "I've crunched the numbers, and even with all the cuts I've made, I just can't make it work." "That's a big increase," I said, feeling the weight of the situation. "Have you talked to the landlord? Maybe they can work out a payment plan or something." "I tried," she said, sounding defeated. "But they're firm on the new price. They said it's because of rising property taxes and maintenance costs." "Okay, let's think this through," I said, trying to come up with a solution. "Have you looked into other housing options? Maybe there's a cheaper place nearby?" "I've started looking," she said, "but everything in this area is either just as expensive or in really bad shape. I don't want to move the kids out of their school district again, but I don't know what else to do." We spent the next hour discussing options, but nothing seemed viable. Emily was facing a tough choice: either find a way to afford the new rent or uproot her family again. After we hung up, I couldn't stop thinking about her situation. It felt like every time she made progress, something came along to push her back down. I wanted to help, but I knew I couldn't just throw money at the problem. Emily needed a long-term solution, not a temporary fix. A few days later, Emily called me with some surprising news. "Alex, I think I found a way out," she said, her voice filled with cautious optimism. "What's going on?" I asked, intrigued. "I was talking to one of my classmates, and she mentioned that her company is hiring. It's a full-time position with benefits, and it pays way better than what I'm making now. Plus, it's remote, so I could work from home and still take care of the kids." "That sounds perfect," I said, feeling a surge of hope. "Have you applied yet?" "Not yet," she admitted. "I'm a little nervous. It's a big step up from what I'm doing now, and I'm not sure if I'm qualified." "You've been working so hard, Emily," I encouraged her. "You've been managing your household, going to school, and working part-time. You're more than qualified. You should definitely apply." "I think I will," she said, sounding more confident. "It's scary, but it could really change things for us." A few weeks later, Emily called me with even better news: she got the job. The relief in her voice was palpable, and I could tell that this was a turning point for her. "I can't believe it, Alex," she said, almost in tears. "This job is going to make such a difference. We won't have to move, and I'll finally be able to save some money." "Emily, this is amazing," I said, beaming. "You've worked so hard to get here. I'm so proud of you." For the first time in a long time, things were looking up for Emily. She had a stable job, her finances were improving, and she was on her way to finishing her degree. The challenges weren't over, but she was in a much better place than she had been a year ago. As Emily settled into her new job, she continued to work on her degree and manage her household. The changes in her life were profound. She was more confident, more self-sufficient, and more optimistic about the future. One evening, we sat down together at her kitchen table, reminiscing about everything that had happened over the past year. The kids were playing in the other room, their laughter filling the house. "I can't believe how far we've come," Emily said, a smile on her face. A year ago, I was barely holding on, and now I'm in a job I love, I'm finishing my degree, and we're finally stable. You've done an incredible job, Em, I said, feeling a deep sense of pride. You've turned your life around, and you've done it all while being an amazing mom. I'm so proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you, Alex, she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. You pushed me to face the truth, even when it was hard to hear. You helped me see that I needed to change, and you supported me every step of the way. I squeezed her hand, feeling a lump in my throat. We're family, Emily. We've got to look out for each other. I'm just glad I could be there for you. As we sat there, I realized how much our relationship had grown. We had gone through some tough times, but those challenges had brought us closer together. I had learned to balance being supportive without being enabling, and Emily had learned to take responsibility for her own life. We had both grown, not just as siblings, but as individuals. The road hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. As the months passed, Emily continued to thrive in her new job. She completed her degree and even started thinking about the next steps in her career. The kids were doing well in school, and the stability in their lives had a noticeable impact on their happiness. Our family gatherings were different now too. There was less tension, more laughter, and a sense of peace that hadn't been there before. Emily and I had learned how to communicate better, and our parents were relieved to see us both doing well. One evening, after another successful family dinner, Emily and I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. You know, Alex, she said, breaking the comfortable silence, I was really mad at you that night when you told me I shouldn't have had kids if I couldn't afford them. But looking back, I think it was the wake-up call I needed. I'm glad you can see it that way now, I said, reflecting on how far we'd come. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I'm glad it led to some positive changes. It did, she agreed. Thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed these Reddit stories, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.